Welcome back, everybody. We're checking into my worm bins today. There's no real specific task at hand. It's been about 3 days since I last fed the bins. Maybe at best, if the bin seems dry, we'll add a little water, squirt a little moisture into there, but that's all I had in mind for today. All right, let's go over to the table. This one's only been around for about 50 days. And this bin was not populated in the conventional sense. This bin is acting as the migration destination for a vertical migration climbing upwards. We have the two oldest bins. It sits on top of castings, and the castings are pretty much ready to be used in the garden, except we're giving the worms one last chance to evacuate the material and make their way into another active bin. Otherwise, for a lucky few, it'll be freedom out into the garden. So, but that's the idea, is we're trying to make this bin here as tempting as possible. And it's got a very nice, this one in particular has a very nice moisture content. I think I might have spent a little extra time on this one to make sure that it would be that way. What do we have here? The consistency is about the same as what we felt on top, which is moisture. See the material from earlier feedings piled up here, and pretty decent amount of worms. I gotta say the smell is getting a little bit funky, but like I said, this bin was set up and put into action without any worms, so it did rely on worms to. So this bin is dependent on being populated by worms coming to it from below. So some of the material in here has had quite a bit of time to get a little bit funky. And it does smell like maybe it's just a matter of maybe mixing it up a little bit, because I've been very generous with the moisture here. So stuff on the bottom that might have gotten more moisture than the rest would be getting a little bit funky at this point. So I'm just trying to do a little bit of aerating, and at the same time use my fingers to probe for sections that seem like they might just be really dense. I think what would solve the slightly funny odor is just more air, so that the breakdown process can happen more readily. Oh, what's this? When I reached down, I could really feel that kind of that soft, gooey feeling of either the rotting food or the worms or both. I figured I couldn't resist pulling that one out. I'm sure there's other little pockets of hot spots in action. Put this thing back on the shelf and get to the next one. Just in general, I mean, in terms of the shorter period of time that this bin has been in service and the slow manner in which it's been populated, I think that the breakdown process is happening very quickly, or much more quickly than I thought it would. So that's good. Besides the funny odor, I think this one's doing quite well. Let's try it this way. Might cover better. Alrighty. Okay, the next one is also from April. This is funny. Looks like you got like a black pearl. Just one of these isopods or whatever they're called, they're rolled up. They do a good job eating the food and whatnot as well, as long as they don't harm my wormies. Oh, I forgot to leave the little salad dressing on top. I just mixed it in. At this point it looks pretty good. I like that when there's enough moisture that the worms don't mind coming up to the top of the surface. So maybe this one doesn't need to be watered either. I only disrupted the other bin as much as I did because I felt the aeration would do it good. In this case, I think we're just going to take a less intrusive approach to seeing how things are happening, and we'll just check the last feeding location for activity. You can see similar types of vegetable matter. This smells like some sort of citrus left over from the old citrus test when it was still going on. Let's peel back a little bit from this side too, see what we get. Good stuff. Some of the stuff like that citrus has been in there for some time, so that's probably what they're after now. Some of these newer additions are only a few days old, this cabbage. Let's take another peek at what's happening over here. But I would just say that in general this bin is looking quite nice. This bin has no odor whatsoever. Pretty good. So far there's been no need to add water. Although from the other day when I fed, 3 days ago I think, I do recall at least one of the bins feeling like it could probably use some moisture. So it might have just gotten better on its own by now. We'll see. Let's get the next one up here and see how things are going. April 4th. This bin seems to have a consistency similar to the last bin from a moisture perspective. Here again, I don't think watering it will be necessary. Let's take a peek and see how things are progressing here. Quite similar. You can see all the foodstuffs are quite similar in both bins. I mean, all the bins basically. Every bin got a very similar feeding. Now here in this one, I'm smelling that moisture, that kind of damp moisture smell. Not too bad. I guess maybe it's probably, maybe more of the smell of the vegetables decomposing, rotting away a little bit there. That's okay, the worms love that stuff, so pretty soon they'll be all over it and it'll be gone, and it'll be in their bellies and out the other end. Alright. Not much other than what I was expecting here too. Once again, I guess I'm going to stick to the concept of not disturbing it too much. So let's just plop the food back down where it was and let these little guys get back to work. I couldn't even tell you what this is, but they like it. Squirming in and out of it. Here too, something that they must really, really enjoy, because it's just oozing with worms. No idea what it is. Good job, guys. Keep it up. Okay. Here's that chestnut or whatever, some sort of hard nut. Interestingly enough, it seems like the worms are on it. And it almost feels like the texture, the hard texture of the outside is not what it used to be. A little softer now. Not softer, just not as rough. Something's going on here. I think they're breaking it down. So we'll put it back into an obvious place again so we can stumble on it later. Okay, very good. Okay, we're getting newer and newer here, or older and older, I'm sorry. So this is back to February, mid-February, a couple days after Valentine's Day. From what I remember during the feeding a couple days ago, this bin was really, really active. It even kind of took me aback. It made me say, wow, when I peeled back some of the material and saw how many worms there were. So that was part of the reason I wanted to put this one on, this little visit with the bins on video, because if that shows up again, it's quite a sight to see. So let's see if we can get that same sort of a sighting here, because it was quite incredible. Just the sheer number of worms that were piled up in that one section that I encountered the other day. So let's see what we got. Material in this bin, by the way, it just feels really beautiful, like very light, airy. Yeah, you know, so look at these guys. It's just bursting with wormies. This bin definitely has an impressive population, sheer numbers of them. Crazy. I love it. And if you could just feel the material, it's just beautiful. It's just so light and airy. It doesn't clump. It doesn't stick to itself. You could just run your fingers right through it. It's perfect. This bin and the other bin that we're going to see next, which is a little bit more mature than this one, these might require some advanced planning on how to start separating the worms from this casting material, because this does feel like it could be very close to harvest time. And I'm thinking one of these horizontal migration setups seems to work very effectively. It might be time to start thinking of doing that here. Alright, let's let these guys get back to work and we'll check in on that last bin. Here it's just all castings. There's really not much. Wow, look at this. Holy camoli. Just balls. This must be what they're working on. This bin certainly feels like it's pretty much there. Other than these scraps of food that have been added recently, everything else just feels like straight up castings. So I really enjoyed that little visit. I hope you did too. Very lively bin, here in this case, no odor whatsoever, just, you know, pure clean. What's this? This looks like the top of a pepper, maybe. See, they're working. They're working the stem. Just takes more time. Alright, we're down to the last oldest bin at this point, and that one is that one has a sort of a companion bin, which is a pot, a planter. They're both the same age. It's not so easy to poke around and observe what's happening in that pot bin, so I think we're going to leave that one be. We're just going to look at what's happening in the flat tray. But this will give us an idea of the how the material in this bin from late January, that was started in late January, is coming along. You would have to assume that this one is in a similar state to the last bin we saw. And a little bit dry, but not such that I would think even here would be necessary to add water. Looks like the top of another pepper or something. Leaf structure, or the vein structure. Or maybe even just leaves. Can't tell. So, let's see what we have going on in here. Here I could see very similar kind of activity as the last bin we just peeked in on. Very nice castings everywhere. Not too much of an odor. here too, I think there's just some bits of food in here that are a little bit older than the rest, so that stuff just starts to emit a little bit of an odor after a while before it gets consumed by the worms. I don't think any of these is really indicating a problem though from its odor. Yeah. Very lively, very active, good healthy bins. Alright, well I guess we did not need to add moisture anywhere. At least we got to see how everything's happening here. You know what this is? This is from one of the this is one of the tomato plants that I accidentally snapped when I was trying to transplant it. And the root system probably has many very fine little roots that the worms are able to get at right away. So very nice. But all right, yeah, with that, let me just go ahead and thank you for popping in to see what's happening here. Hopefully you'll agree with me. It seems like things are progressing very nicely. I like what I'm seeing. If you see anything that doesn't look right, then by all means, please speak up and let me know. Try to tackle it, nip it in the bud if it's possible, and fix it if possible. But like I said on the last bin, I think it's time to start planning on cultivating these castings and helping the worms get out before it's time to harvest. So, alright guys, thanks again for coming, and hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, and we'll see you next time. Bye now.